collective. It's in here. I've got another card read for you today, or whatever you want to call them, breakdown. I had actually pulled this card 4 days ago, and another card had come out with it, but it just felt like that card combination was a direct message for me. Then I moved on to, okay, well, if it's a direct message for me, I'm part of this collective, so maybe it is a group message still. And then I kept working on it, and I was like, this is a little bit raw for me to do. Let's pull another card and see what other message we can give the collective. And the same card came out, but only one came out this time. So that kind of cut down the rawness of it for me. Anyway, so today's card is the South Node, which is all about our past. So a little bit about the nodes of the moon. So the nodes of the moon are literally a shadow, right? That gets cast as the moon, the sun, and the earth move across each other kind of thing. I'm not an astrologer, so this is just my explanation, okay? And what I've learned. So the North Node will be the part of the ecliptic line in the northern hemisphere that casts a shadow on the moon, and the South Node is in the southern hemisphere where the ecliptic line casts a shadow, where there's a shadow cast on the moon at the ecliptic line in the south. So every 18 months, this shadow moves into the South Node, and the North Node move into a different sign. So you can easily find out what your North and South Node are by just Googling the year you were born, and it should tell you what your North and South Node are. In like some ancient cultures, say for instance, in some Arabic and Persian cultures, the North and South Node were considered the head and tail of a dragon. In Hindu cultures, it was a story about a serpent from the underworld that drank the nectar of immortality and was cut in half by the universal creator, Vishnu, and but survived. And so his head became the North Node and tail became the South Node. So just for clarity, your North Node is attached to life purpose, and your South Node is attached to past and past lives. So what the South Node does for us is it brings awareness of shadow areas that we need to work on in order to achieve our North Node purpose. So it's about becoming more balanced between the intellect and the intuitive heart space energy. Finding the balance between the two. Because what you'll find is that your South Node issues will often cause blockages that prevent you moving forward in the way you would like to in life. And often have us repeating psychological patterns that sometimes we aren't aware of, and sometimes are so old in our bloodlines that it goes back generations. So it's really, your South Node is really asking you, if you're not a believer in past lives, it's asking you to look at intergenerational wounding, right? So, for instance, the intergenerational wounding for me and Aboriginal people is the violence of colonialism and how that has come into our communities and created so much wounding disconnect and grief. And that intergenerational trauma will move through bloodlines until someone decides they are going to address it. And I guess that this card coming out is asking you to all take a look at that. Take a look at what intergenerational wounding has come through your bloodlines that needs to be healed in order for us to progress to what our actual life purposes are. So very much the South Node is very, very interested in idealism and transforming, surrendering of the ego to bring forth all our higher selves, the truth that we're meant to operate from. Connected to the crown chakra, which is the energy center in our body where we connect to our higher self and to source, whatever source may be for you, whether it's energy, God, whatever. So I think this reading is really highlighting how important it is to look at our shadow work. So things that we need to do within our South Node in order to move the way we need to with our North Node. So I guess for me, one thing that my South Node, Aquarius, points out to me, and it's very highlighted for me because my son is also in Aquarius, is that my history with addiction battles, impulsivity struggles, are part of my South Node healing that needs to happen or has needed to happen over my life. And I can honestly say that, like, my addiction stuff I was addressing when I was 20 and I'm 44 now. So without even knowing it, I was doing South Node work when I was 20. That, yep, it's asking us to look at childhood trauma and intergenerational patterns in our families. Things that we might see as normal because that's what our parents experienced and that's what their parents experienced. But it's understanding that a lot of things our parents brought into parenting carried wounding as well. Yeah. So for me, it's been, having been raised by a narcissistic mum, I spent my childhood having a carrot dangled in front of me saying, if you do this perfectly, I will love you. And so I would work my ass off to do it perfectly. And then the carrot would be moved a little bit further away. The finish line was always moved. So I was in this constant state of earning people's love, which as an adult has shown up as me giving way more than I need to for a start, but so much of myself that it becomes detrimental and I'm actually hurting myself. And for me, it's about finding that balance. It's about finding the balance of self-love, filling my own cup, and then being able to fill other people's cups, yeah? So part of that has also been that I stay in places way too long, which is definitely a South Node thing in Aquarius. But it's not all negative stuff, right? South Node's not always just negative, karmic kind of stuff. It can highlight missions that your highest self still needs to accomplish. Like, you might have unfinished business. You one of your life purposes might be that you will work on unifying collective consciousness. That's definitely one for me. I know that I struggle with authority because usually Aquarius in South Node will fall into two categories: a rebel or someone who's always been ostracized. And I think somehow, because I have my South Node and my Sun in Aquarius, I've experienced both those things. So I definitely have massive struggles with authority. I really struggle with feeling like I really belong in places. And that has really stemmed from a lot of family alienation because of having the mother that I did, the dynamics that creates within sibling relationships, and that we all kids in a family will have different experiences, and that other siblings are not necessarily willing to hear that your experience was different to theirs. And that's been a big challenge for me. I am hyper independent to a fault, also as a life path 1. So I know that I protect myself from harm, hurt. I give people a lot of chances and then bang, done. And can easily fall back into my, okay, well, I'm okay on my own, I'm okay on my own. But I also know that I'm ignoring a part of me that really wants to connect deeply with people, yeah? That I'm constantly challenging the status quo. I am now at a point at 44 where the status quo's opinion on how I present myself, what I have to say, does not emotionally affect me beyond me laughing my fucking ass off at them. Very, very, very concerned with collective progress. I'm definitely not about individualism here. It's about collective progress, collective healing, collective transformation, collective moving forward. That I do carry big emotional loads. But that's also part of that is that 55% of my birth chart is water. All right. And my South Node has taught me that it is every bit as important to unlearn as it is to learn. So I guess my advice to you from this video is it might be time for this collective to take a deep dive into family histories, their own past, how their South Node placement might really be signaling healing that needs to be done. We need to be healed to create a healed world. Yeah? That's something that constantly comes to my mind. We need to be healed, collectively healed, to create a collectively healed world. And I guess that's part of my South Node saying, I want to heal community consciousness. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you today. Don't just look at where your South Nodes are, South and North Node, but also take a look at what house they fall into in your birth chart, because that will also signify extra places you may need healing. Yeah. So hang on a second. I can probably kind of give you a bit of a rundown on that. So if your south node falls in your first house, it's how you arrive in the world. So you might have wounding over how you're perceived. If your south node falls into the second house, it could be that you have a problem wounding around resources and scarcity and things like that in the material world. Third house could signify that you have some healing to do around communication. Fourth house will signify that you have healing to do around home. And that just happens to be the second card that came out the other day. So, the fifth house is working on trauma and wounding you may have around passion. Sixth house is sustainability. Seventh house is relationships. Eighth house is mystery. So the unknown could be a bit of a wounded point for you. Ninth house is exploration, stepping outside of what you know. 10th house is authority. It could mean that you have wounding around legal stuff, your public self, and your relationship to authority figures. The 11th house is community. And the 12th house is introspection. So it could really just be wounding over how you perceive yourself based on conditioning that you've had over your lifetime and intergenerationally. Anyway, I hope that is helpful for some of you. It's definitely been helpful for me to have the South Node and Fourth House card come out to understand a few things that are happening in my own life a little bit better. It's a process. Healing is a process, and I guess the purpose of me doing these videos, highlighting certain areas that we might need to focus on for transformative change, is about putting stuff out there for you to think about to move forward. Because I think a lot of us, we want to be in our life purpose. But the past keeps us trapped, yeah? Anyway, thank you for listening.